Hey everybody, Argent here with my reaction review of Rambo Last Blood. So I just got out of the movie and I figured I'd give everybody my hot take while it was still fresh in my mind. So, I went into this film with no expectations. I've never been like a big Rambo fan. I know they exist and I know like all the memes related to them. But as to the actual movies, I'd seen Rambo and Rambo First Blood, and I haven't seen Rambo First Blood Part 2 or Rambo 3. I don't know, it's just something that never really interested me. As far as Stallone movies go, I like the Rocky ones a lot better in general. The Rambo ones just seem very tonally weird to me. So I went to this movie with no expectations. It's Friday night. I like to go see a movie. It was either this or Ad Astra or whatever it's called with Brad Pitt, which I actually kind of wish I'd gone to see instead of this. So what do I think about this movie? Well, I guess before we get to the bad, and there's a lot of bad, let's talk about the good. So this movie's gotten a lot of controversy. It's triggered a lot of people. It's triggered the libs, own the libs, as Monday Matt would say. People are calling it racist. People are calling it nationalistic. People are calling it an ode to the Trump presidency, which were all kind of things that made me a little excited to go see it. And in the film's defense, it is so woke that you'll probably have insomnia after watching it. But yeah, so that's kind of like where the good ends. So let's just maybe start talking about the movie, and as I kind of go through the plot a bit, I'll kind of explain why this film was kind of a disappointment. Now, firstly, this film is an hour and a half. I've seen some people say hour and a half. I saw some sources say 100 minutes. It didn't feel like that. It felt like 40 minutes. It felt like an episode of a TV show. It's just, everything was so rushed. Like, if you're going to have the final part of like a 5-part, of like a quintilogy, you think you want to end it with a little more substance. But no, this film was only an hour and a half. And you could really tell there were large portions of this film they could have expanded. It just felt really rushed. Actually, in a lot of ways, what this really reminded me of was the last season of Game of Thrones. You can kind of picture them like pitching this, like, okay, we're going to make the last Rambo movie, it's going to be big. We just want it to be an hour and a half. You can have more time. No, we can tell the story perfectly fine in just an hour and a half. We don't want any more time for the movie, so it just feels super rushed. So this takes place, I think it's 5 years after the events of Rambo. So John Rambo has gone back to his ranch and he's built a series of tunnels for some reason, because it makes him feel like he's at home in Vietnam. Maybe that was in one of the previous movies. I don't remember, to be honest. I haven't seen the other films, so so he got back. So there's a woman there, and I don't know who she is. If she's his sister-in-law, I don't know who she is, but she's there with some girl whose relationship to John Rambo I don't really know. My guess, and it wasn't really explained, that she was the daughter of his sister, maybe? Or was she the... I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's not really adequately explored. So there's this girl there, and she's pretty cute. She's you know, the whole 62% meme. She's like 80% meme. She's not bad looking. So she's gonna go off to college, and she's kind of like partying with her friends a bit. And John Rambo allows them to come over and see the tunnels. And you think, like, I hadn't seen any like trailers for this movie, so I had no idea what was even going to happen. It's like set up that she's maybe going to go away to college and something's going to happen, or there's going to be some boyfriend or something like that. But none of that even happens, and the whole scene with her at the party is completely pointless and is never referenced again. So they have a party, and then she gets a call from a former friend of hers, who's this really shady woman who lives in Mexico. And she's like, we found your father. So apparently her father abandoned her, big surprise, like, forget it's like 15 years ago or like a decade ago or something. And then her mother died, I think, slightly after that. They don't really go into any sort of detail on like any aspect of this, but I think like he abused her mother. I think, I don't know, it's not really like, once again, these things are just kind of thrown at you. They're just kind of thrown out there with no real care or attention to detail, and you're just kind of expected to just, I don't know, try to follow it. So there's that. Yeah, so John Rambo apparently helped raise her, but they found her father, and she needs to go ask her father why he abandoned her. So she goes to Mexico. John Rambo tries to tell her, no, don't go to Mexico. It's run by drug cartels. They aren't sending their best. The people there are actually worse than the people they're sending. So just don't go to Mexico. But she goes to Mexico and she meets her father, and her father just says, look, I'm a deadbeat. I hate you. I hate your mother. You're a bitch. Fuck off. So she leaves, and then her Mexican friend who helped her out takes her to a club, and she gets drugged and taken away and sold into prostitution. So she's, beat up, drugged, and put in I think it's like a prison camp where they train them for brothels. So John Rambo finds out about it because the sketchy friend was trying to cover her ass by saying, oh, she just disappeared. So John Rambo comes down and he intimidates her into showing her where the guy was who took his daughter, his adopted daughter. So we get a scene of him torturing that guy. I think he literally rips his collarbone out. And then then one of the most bizarre scenes in the whole movie happened. He walks up to, he just walks up to the dude, like, who runs this, like, prostitution ring and this, like, drug cartel, and he just asks him to give the daughter back. And he thinks that that's going to work for some reason. I'm like, this is John Rambo. This is, like, the master of, like, improvisation. He's like a super commando. Why didn't he go into this prepared? Why didn't he go into this, like, and just take everybody down? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's just to pad this fucking movie. And if you're having to pad a movie that's 90 minutes long, that's not a good thing. Because, like, the logical thing would have been Rambo makes, like, some super commando plan to rescue her. But then the movie would have been over in, like, 40 minutes, which it probably should have been. So Rambo gets his ass kicked. They take out his eye. They carve the sign of the V, not the Z, the sign of the V into his cheek. And he's saved by a journalist who has no personality. And she's like, oh, my sister was kidnapped and killed by them too. And he's like, you gotta help me. So after he, like, recoups for a couple of days, oh yeah, and the guy had said, I was just going to use her as a prostitute and sell her, but I'm going to kill her now because you made trouble for me. So while he's recuperating, there's a montage of his adopted daughter getting stabbed with heroin needles and repeatedly raped. And then John Rambo manages to get up, and he goes and he kills like 10 guys with a hammer. And he gets his stepdaughter back, and his stepdaughter, I didn't know where they were going once again with this. Like, I just, like, what is even happening? Like, is this supposed to be, like, Rambo was right, but his daughter was kind of right too? Is this supposed to be like revenge is a good thing? Like, I have no idea where the hell they were even going with this movie. Like, what the thought process was. It feels like they just kind of rushed it out on a legal pad. No, it would have been significantly better if they had have just rushed it out. This kind of like nonsense takes effort. Once again. So she dies in the car on the way back to America, and we get him driving over the border fence, and he just goes back into America. He just doesn't give a fuck. Once again, that's kind of a subtle Trump thing. And people are saying, well, this is portraying Mexico as a country full of criminals and drug dealers and human traffickers. And that might all be true, but it's mean to come out and say it. And this movie is also implying that the border doesn't exist. So John Rambo is like, I want revenge. And I gotta give this movie credit. The movie seems to agree with him. That him wanting revenge, that him wanting to kill these assholes is a good thing. So I'll give it credit for that. That was pretty base. So Rambo goes back. So Rambo, we get a montage, which really should have had the Rocky theme of him making traps in his farm. And then he goes back to Mexico and he kills a bunch of cartel thugs and basically tells them where he is. So they cross the border with like all kinds of AKs and like heavily armed. And then we get like the meat of the movie and the only reason this film exists, which is like 15 minutes of Rambo just killing people with traps. And then he's like, the whole thing is like to just scare the crap out of the guy who killed his daughter. And he's like, I did this to make you feel what I did, that you cut into my chest and took out my heart. So he like cuts into the guy's chest and pulls out his heart and shows it to him to show like the pain that he had in losing his daughter. And he had gotten shot a couple times, so like I don't know if he was dying or not. It was kind of ambiguous. He like gets up onto the porch and rides his horse. He gets on the porch and he like rocks back and forth. And then it cuts to like a montage of scenes from the previous Rambo movies, including this Rambo movie. So like they were so desperate to make it feature length, they had to put in like a 5-minute montage just to pad their running time. And how fucking self-indulgent is it to have a montage of the movie you just saw at the end of the fucking movie? Like, it's so indulgent, it's self-indulgent, especially when the movie's this short. So then we cut to the other Game of Thrones moment where Rambo's riding off on a horse into the sunset. It's like, is he dead? His end speech is kind of ambiguous as to whether he's still alive or not. It doesn't make any sense. So he just kind of goes off into the sunset with nothing really being resolved. His character arc's not resolved. The plot of this movie made no goddamn sense. The editing was horrible. The only kind of good thing about it was that it triggered the libs and owned the libs, and that it like had some okay action scenes. But this felt like the last episode of Game of Thrones. It felt like they just had some random footage from previous Rambo movies, like, and maybe like a couple rejected episodes of Narcos Mexico, and they just edited it together to like form a semi-coherent narrative. Like, just thinking about it, this movie was really bad. Like, really, really bad. So, I don't know, maybe like if you want to make some memes out of it, make some memes out of it. But this movie just sucked. The only reason it wasn't like painful to watch is because it was so short. Maybe that's like some sort of like it's like a Buddhist cone. The movie sucked because it was so short. They didn't take time to develop anything. But the film was not as abrasively bad as it could have been because it was so short and they didn't take time to develop anything. It's like something you can achieve enlightenment thinking about. Anyway, so that's Rambo Last Blood. hopefully there's not going to be another Rambo movie, as that's the kind of quality content they're turning out. It's definitely no Rocky Balboa or Creed. It's much worse than either of those. Anyways, this is Arjun, as always. God bless, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.